All right. Well, welcome to the first edition of Quarantine AP Literature. Why don't we jump right in? We're going to take a look at two sonnets today, Sonnet 2 and Sonnet 116. When 40 winters shall besiege thy brow and dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field, thy youth's proud livery, so gazed on now, will be a tattered weed of small worth held. Then being asked where all thy beauty lies, where all the treasure of thy lusty days, to say within thine own deep sunken eyes were an all-eating shame and thriftless praise. How much more praise deserved thy beauty's use, if thou couldst answer, this fair child of mine shall sum my count and make my old excuse, proving his beauty by succession thine. This were to be new made when thou art old, and see thy blood warm when thou feelst it cold. Okay, let's take a look. We start off, let's read the first quatrain. When 40 winters shall besiege thy brow and dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field, and thy youth's proud livery, so gazed on now, will be a tattered weed of small worth held. So first thing, we start off with 40, which interestingly does not mean 40. 40 throughout the Bible and kind of throughout classical times means many. Because it turns out 40 isn't that old. Anyway, so when 40 winters shall besiege thy brow and dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field, and maybe you're thinking about the word besiege, and a siege sounds like a military kind of thing. And so this is kind of like when 40 winters attack your brow, right? Like your forehead. And dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field. And trenches here, right? In the military metaphor, it's like a trench in the ground that one might use to provide an obstacle for an advancing army. But the metaphor also in thy beauty's field, that means the wrinkles in your forehead. Thy youth's proud livery, so gazed on now, will be a tattered weed of small worth held. The word livery refers to like a uniform, so like a military uniform. And so that proud livery there, that uniform, which here means beauty. So gazed on now will be a tattered weed, meaning it will be, all worn out and, with holes in it and tattered, of small worth held, right? It won't be worth anything anymore in 40 years. Okay, so we start off with this military metaphor. Then, being asked where all thy beauty lies, where all the treasure of thy lusty days, to say within thine own deep sunken eyes, were an all-eating shame and thriftless praise, right? And so in this quatrain, it's a new things, right? Then, and this means to the youth, when you're asked where all your beauty lies, all the treasure of thy lusty days. So the treasure of your youth, to say within thine own deep sunken eyes were an all-eating shame and thriftless praise. We have, deep sunken. Think back. I just happen to have it here to Sonnet 1, right, where Shakespeare talks about thine own bright eyes, right? But here, it's talking about the young man being old, right, and your deep sunken eyes. So that's a contrast between 1 and 2. Sonnet 1 is more about, you as a youth. You don't want this to happen. Sonnet 2 is imagine when you're old. Okay, so to say within thine own deep sunken eyes were an all-eating shame and thriftless praise. So we have all-eating shame, right? Which is interesting because that means that shame is disgraceful, not shame. Aging is shameful, right? So that's disgraceful. And a thriftless praise, and we can compare thriftless to treasure here. Whereas that treasure, you didn't spend it at all, right? And so it didn't account for anything. All right, and so our next quatrain then: how much more praise deserve thy beauty's use? If thou could answer, right? So your beauty's use would be worth so much more if you could answer, This fair child of mine shall sum my count and make my old excuse, proving his beauty by succession thine. So we have, these three things. I shall sum my count and make my old excuse. These are kind of accounting and inheritance verbiage, language, that metaphor. So, basically it'll balance my books and pay off my debts, and proving his beauty by succession thine, right? And then through succession, which is another inheritance kind of word, that beauty will be spent forward, inherited by the child. So essentially, right, your beauty would be worth so much more if you had a child, because that child would, pay all of those debts out to the next generation, and by succession thine. And so when you're old, you'll still have access to this beauty because the child is there and has the beauty. Right? So this word to be new made when thou art old, and see thy blood warm when thou feelst it cold. Right? So this were to be new, right? So this new beauty of a child when you're old will warm your blood when thou feelst it cold, right? And that cold goes back to winters. You think about winter, and winter is the season when everything dies, right? And so when we talk about winter in a poem, a lot of times we're talking about the end of life, the end of something. And so when you're old and dying, this will warm your blood because you'll have a child who will have your beauty. Right. And so that's the first 17 sonnets, basically the same thing. You're a beautiful young man, have a child, please. Sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it's an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks with his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Okay, so let's take a look at the first quatrain here. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Actually, we'll just start with the first sentence. So let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. And a lot of the vocabulary here is actually from the Book of Common Prayer. So it's reference to the marriage ceremony in the Book of Common Prayer. And you can almost imagine, if you've got that kind of cliche, does anyone here have any reason these two shouldn't get married? Right, this is kind of a reference to that sort of thing. So let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. I also actually find this really an interesting sort of thing, right? Because it's true minds. He doesn't say bodies. He's talking about minds marrying here, which I think is it's just something I like. So let me not admit impediments, or let me not say there's anything that should keep them apart. So love is not love which alters when an alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. So we have the use of the word true here. We can kind of carry that forward. So true love is not love which alters when it finds an alteration, or bends with a remover to remove, right? So it doesn't bend to something moving, right? So what's it saying here? True love is constant. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. Of course, we know a tempest is a storm. An ever fixed mark. That's a beacon. Something like a lighthouse. So when there are storms, right, love is this lighthouse, right? It doesn't move. It tells you your way. We have actually another kind of riff on that same metaphor with these next lines. It is a star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. right? A star, specifically the North Star. In navigation, or people, I say navigators, use the North Star in order to tell where they're going, to tell which direction is north. Every wandering bark. If you ever heard the word embark, that's what you do on a boat when you get on a boat. So bark actually refers to a boat. So this constant love, true love, is the star to every wandering bark whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. And his height being taken is that's referring to that kind of telescope thing that sort of looks like this, right? It's a navigation measuring tool that can tell distances and all kinds of things that I don't really know. So right, this is the star, the navigation star, right? And the North Star doesn't move at night. That's why we use it for navigation, right? Again, using this this ship metaphor. Love doesn't move; it's constant. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks with his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. So the first line's up to the semicolon here. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickles come. Right. So all this stuff of love, the rosy lips and cheeks, the youth stuff within time's bending sickle, right? And so time as the reaper. Within all that, right? It all gets cut down. The youth gets cut down. Lives get cut down through all that, right? Love is not time's full. Love alters not with its brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. His refers to times, brief hours and weeks, but bears it out to the edge of doom. So love alters not. Love doesn't change, even within times, brief hours and weeks of our lives. Bears out to the edge of doom. Doom here, doomsday, right? Which is Armageddon. Ooh, can I spell Armageddon? Maybe. Right. So that's what love is. It's constant throughout. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ nor no man ever loved. All right, and this is kind of an arrogant end, but it's just saying, I'm right, and if I'm wrong, then my whole life has been a lie, sort of thing, and that love isn't real. And so that's just kind of the end of it. It's interesting because even though that's kind of an arrogant thing to say, it's not Shakespeare's usual arrogance. He's not talking about how great of a poet he is or anything like that. It's about what true love is, and it's not really love to a person. It's about love in general and about what that true love is constant, right? And that would be the theme here. True love is constant. Through the quote unquote ups and downs and that sort of thing.